Thank you so much for being here. So if you guys are not aware, I am our next season of the Feral Self-Care Collective is starting on July 7th. You guys, time is running out. So if you want to get in on this season, you're going to have to sign up. But Cara is one of our incredible guest speakers. Now, Cara, would you mind just letting people know a little bit about you? I'm so glad that I found you. In on Threads, I believe. So yeah, if you would just let people know about you and the work you do, which is actually really fucking interesting.
Thank you, Mandy. Hello, everybody. My name is Cara, and I've been a body person into fitness for many years. And that story and that growth process happened a lot alongside my creative and magical and spiritual evolution. I consider myself somebody who is here to remember my own enchanted nature and to help other people remember their own enchanted natures and how that inherent magic shows up in our physical bodies and how we can use the way we relate to our bodies through movement, through fitness practices, through play, through physicality, as a way to not only just deepen self-connection, sense of felt safety within ourselves, but also a sense of practical empowerment and our ability to stand up for ourselves, hold to our boundaries, make the moves in the world that we want to make, go after our dreams, our desires, do the things here in life that we want to do. So I'm just very passionate about using our relationship to our everyday physicality as a way to just bolster and support the whole prismatic spectrum of our beings.
That's so amazing. So first of all, apologies for mispronouncing your name. It's Cara.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So apologies for that, but that is so interesting. So, just that hits home for me personally as well, because as somebody who's dealt with like chronic illness, in the body, it is really crazy because at the time, like when I was really dealing with chronic illness, when I was in my 20s, uh, I really struggled to get a diagnosis. I was really suffering. And I remember doctors and stuff used to just be like, oh, well, like maybe try and strengthen the muscles to like release the pressure on the joints and things like that. But like I was starting from nothing and I felt so disconnected from my body. And that's something that I've noticed with a lot of people I work with as well is like, there can be this feeling of your body betraying you or not having that relationship with your body, with movement. And I know for myself personally, as I began a movement practice, a lot of like mental health stuff changed, a lot of like, how I related to the world changed. So I think that's such important work that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. And I want to hone in on what you just described and shared about sort of the pain of sort of disembodiment and separation and the reality of physical pain and the emotional psychological distress that comes with that, and how for a lot of people it is not an obvious or accessible, easeful thing to feel good in your body. It's something that for me personally has taken many, many years to sort of wake up and grow into. I'm fortunate that I've never really experienced any chronic acute physical tissue or joint pain. The pain that I've dealt with in my life is much more psychological, emotional, interior type stuff. But I did experience a lot of disembodiment and disconnection. It was like it's like the me that I now experience as the everyday me was like several layers buried within this puppet that I didn't really have a lot of control over or understanding of. So there was this sort of like almost a feeling of like being a ghost in your own body and sort of being like a passive witness and having things just sort of happen to you. And then sometimes you have pain and sometimes you don't. And you have to feed this thing and take care of it. And it does weird things that your intellect does not and cannot really understand. And it was really through both. First, I developed a lot of sort of quick contextual background before I really like woke up into my magical and spiritual path, which really started around like 2015, 2016. I put a lot of, I really found myself in the world of strength sports. lifting weights competitively for fun. It is a very niche, very interesting subculture with lots of different pockets and expressions in it. And I competed in the sport known as Strong Woman Strongman, which is where you often do basically manual labor for fun, feats of strength. You're picking up giant rocks, you're flipping giant tractor tires, you're carrying big sandbags. You're doing these very extreme sort of task-oriented things. Get that big weight from over here to like over there as fast as you can. And I really fell in love with it because, and part of this plays also into like barbell weight training and a lot of things that people love about weightlifting, which was the sort of objective experience of my own physical power. And that was something I didn't have any sense of at all before. And then it got to a point where I knew, and not know in my mind, but I knew in my bones that if I needed to, I could throw my best friend over my shoulder and run. And there's something that happens to you very gradually as you develop certain types of different physical skills and capacities. And I would imagine there are certain physical skills that I don't have. Like I'm not like a trapeze artist or an acrobat. And I bet if you're able to like do a backflip, there's something that happens that gives you just a different sense of yourself. So this isn't limited just to like weight training or strength training. But anytime you get to experience your body doing something beyond the sort of constraints of like your work a day, get from point A to point B experiences, it starts to really open up these other ways that you get to experience reality and yourself that can just be incredibly heartening, inspiring, fun. And so for me, strength sports was sort of the portal into realizing that I actually had no idea what this was really capable of. And I really fell in love with trying to find out.
That's incredible. That is so amazing because even when you look at, spiritual traditions throughout time and across the world, there can be that element of pushing your physical body, right, to get into an altered state or to access different levels of reality. So everything you're saying is just so spot on. I know in my like personal journey with like movement stuff, which is like, I'm not a fitness person, but I had to have this mental reframe of like, that's something that is off limits for me. It was such a weird thing that happened because like with me, movement is more about like walking or like stretching or dancing or like doing things like that. But it's crazy because I think I just saw movement in general as like not for me, something I don't like, something I'm never going to benefit from. And then once I started, after my second child was born, I actually started doing like 10,000 steps a day. And then from there, I was like running. And then from there, and it ended up being this thing that built. And I actually started like lifting some stuff, not heavy things, but like, you know what I mean? And so it was crazy too, because like what you're saying hits home so much. Your perception of reality does change. The way you carry yourself changes. The way it's almost like you're like, oh, there's this whole other dimension of like the experiential part of life that is different than anything I've experienced before, which does unlock things mentally. And it changes your self-concept as well, because you're like, there's something, I mean, I imagine with lifting, it's probably this to like the 10,000th degree, but like there must be something about your self-concept when you're like, I can do this thing. Like I wasn't able to do this thing before and now I can do it. Like
it can be a truly radical shift. And that's definitely part of what got me super committed to a lifting practice was I started to crave the experiential process of challenge growth, challenge growth, challenge growth, and realizing that there was sort of an infinite amount of ways that process could play out. And at first it was really about, well, lifting the most weight, and I was super into lifting like as heavy as I could, and I still like to play with that from time to time, but now I'm a little more interested in just different ways of testing my own capacity and experiencing my own capacity. I've gotten a lot more into running lately, which was never really something for me in the past. I just turned 36, and like the first half of my sort of, at least of my fitness process was very just like I would do, I walk, I move, but I really didn't I just didn't engage with running or like more distance endurance type movement. It just wasn't my thing. And now it's started to be something that I'm more curious about, how that experience changes me, what I experience in myself when I'm doing it, how it changes my experience of my body and what it can do. And having sort of felt, again, like a very clear experiential shift in things like my mental energy and my emotional energy, the capacity that I have to show up for my work, I'm also an artist and a filmmaker, and I work with people one-on-one in training and all these different areas. So like, I like to do stuff. I like to be active, but I really had a lot of issues with fatigue and depression and anxiety and all these things. And now, while lifting and movement wasn't a global, healing for that necessarily, it supported a lot of deep inner work that I needed to do to get more in touch with my own vital energies and my own emotions, and to heal my wounding and deep spiritual work and like all the things.
That's amazing. Yeah, that is so interesting. So, Cara, you are going to be running a session for us on elemental fitness, which I'm actually so interested because I read your write up about that, and I've listened to your interviews, and I just I'm a big fan. And so I just wanted to hear a little bit about that, about elemental fitness and like what brought you to that path.
Yes. So elemental fitness is essentially a way of engaging with the principles of movement to help you sort of deepen your felt connection of your body. And for anyone who's on a magical path or an animist or pagan path, I felt like this was a very intuitive way to start to engage with the sort of nuts and bolts of physical training that will mesh well with a magical operant lens. So in this context, when we're talking about the elements, we're talking about earth, fire, water, and air. Although another lens that might work for people is the land, the waters, the sky, and the sun as like our celestial fire. The foundational concept here is that the elements exist within us. We are expressions of the elements. Each of these elements can be expressed through different ways that we move and do our bodies. So for example, if right now in your chair, you squeeze your fists as tight as you possibly could, and you just squeeze and squeeze and squeeze, you feel your whole body start to get tense, right? Relax.
Oh.
So you just felt something, right? So what you were doing was you were intensifying the pressure and the connectivity of your muscles. You were, what I like to call, you were cultivating earth. You were getting dense, you were getting tense, you were rooting, the rest of your body probably responded. Small muscles in your legs probably got like a little bit more active too.
Yeah.
So the earth element is how we ground, it's how we create tension, how we create stillness, and how we generate and conduct power. At the same time, if you do that long enough, you're going to start to feel your heart rate go up a little bit, and you're going to maybe start to feel a little bit warm. That's fire. That's the literal heat energy of your body changing your physiological state and preparing it for some kind of expression of power. So fire is present basically anytime we're doing anything that raises our heart rate and raises our body temperature. Fire is the conductive element that is required for transformation to occur when it comes to the adaptations of strength or cardiovascular fitness, aerobic fitness. We can develop other qualities without as much heat. But when it comes to getting strong, we need our tissues to be warm for when we move the heavy weights. Heat is conductive. So that's just sort of one way. Heat is both an expression of power, and it's a facilitator of change. Once you're doing that, you're warm, you're tense, and then you notice, ooh, I'm a little lightheaded. I need to breathe. Oxygen is how nutrients get transferred through our body. Our muscles require oxygen in order to function. So air is also a prerequisite, a necessary component of any kind of physical expression. Obviously, like, you need to breathe. It's the fundamental exchange that we're having automatically all of the time with our environment. as long as we are alive. So air is always present. And it's also, in terms of, we were to zoom out a little bit and put on the slightly more imaginal symbolic lens of the elements and their related properties. So earth is the material world. Fire is passion, vitality, sex drive, the creative drive. Air is the realm of the intellect, the heavens above, higher ideas, concepts. So when we bring air into play, we also might be bringing in more dynamic movement. So for example, anything that requires somewhat of a more, anything that requires like a complex motor skill, throwing a ball, doing any kind of fluid choreographed dance movement, for example, all of that requires an element of air. It's going to require more oxygen, and it's going to require a cerebral level of engagement. Last but not least, water. While we're doing all of this, our blood is racing around our body to get that oxygen to our tissues, and it's supporting everything that we do. And if I were to even just like sit here and sway gently side to side, that circulation would be going, and that would be a very easeful, very gentle way for me to get oxygen to my tissues. So even if, let's say, I've got an injury or I've got something going on where I can't do a more intense type of movement, water is always available to us. Even if I, let's say I've got a broken ankle, I can't put weight on it, I can still move my upper body, I can flow, I can find rhythm. So I associate water with rhythm and flow, as well as anything that's going to keep circulation happening and keep circulation happening through the body. A lot of the process of recovering from injury, whether that's a sprained ankle or a pulled muscle, is simply about getting blood and fluid through the tissue, which is why we know now that for a lot of injuries, the advice of just resting in terms of being physically prone is resting in excess can be actually destructive, because circulation slows down almost to a deleterious level. So you should rest, you should get the amount of sleep that you need. You shouldn't, let's say you sprain your ankle, you shouldn't try to run on it immediately, but you do want to move that joint. You want to get circulation moving through those tissues. That will promote the fastest recovery that your body's capable of. And then on the, again, the sort of the more meta, symbolic, imaginal level, water is associated with our emotions, our felt sensations. And I think this is really compelling because for a lot of people, particularly people who have not felt like fitness was accessible to them, or they felt like that's just for the jocks, or that's just for some other guy, right?
Yeah.
They're often, and this is certainly the case for me, that there is a lot of emotional stuff that comes up when it comes to relating our body. Maybe, we have, whether it's, interpersonal harm or trauma or physical trauma of some kind. It's kind of generally accepted that our body holds that in some way. And so when we start to engage with an intentional movement practice, whether it's lifting weights or yoga or dance, it demands a level of presence in our body and in our sensations that can be quite confrontational to people. Not just the act of being present in the body, but then the sensations that come with it. If those sensations are challenging, like, you try to run for the first time and you get out of breath, it's literally painful. It's just like, if you're not used to it, it does not feel good.
Yeah.
So I kind of heard that as like the beginners, or the reinitiation obstacle that sometimes you kind of need to know is coming, which is that like there's going to be a level of discomfort, and the art may be to, one, give yourself a framework and a contextualization for what that discomfort is, understand that it's a good normal part of the process, take as much as you can take, and then rest, and acknowledge and sort of give yourself permission to like have whatever reaction you're going to have to it. Sometimes when people they're trying to build the strength skills for the first time, like pull-ups or push-ups, and they try to do it and they can't do it, and it's emotional. It's like, it doesn't feel good to realize you cannot do something. So yet again, with certain fitness skills or goals, like there might be a very confrontational moment of having to deal with where you are really at, whether that's in terms of weakness of tissue or in physical integrity, or the more interior emotional side of whatever might arise within you as you come into presence with the body. So with the element of water at play, water is a really great place to sort of to wade in slowly, right? If I'm going to walk into the cold ocean, some folks might run right in. Some people will dive right in. Like, God bless. That's not everybody though. Some people want to walk in slowly and like let their body get used to the temperature, and then when they're feeling ready, then you dive in there. So water type movements. Okay, let me zoom back out again. Within the context of like a fitness practice, you could categorize different types of engagement, different types of movement as dominated or informed by one element in particular, and then gauge your workout based on what element you want to express or what elements you might need. So for example, if things are really challenging and confrontational and I'm feeling incredibly stressed, you might want a combination of water, something flowing, rhythmic, that's just going to ease you into your body. That might be like just a slow bike. That might be a slow yoga flow. Plus something grounding that's going to pull you and root you down into your skeleton and into your tissues. That could be just holding a body weight plank. That could be loading up a heavy barbell back squat. Something that's going to really activate your muscles. And bring you into like a lot of activated physical presence. On the flip side, let's say you're feeling really like damp and sort of sad and like groggy and foggy, and you're just like, I do not feel good. You might need something that's a little bit more fire and air. Like you might need to like grab a friend and go like hurl a frisbee around. Something that's literally fast, brings you into a state of excitement physiologically and maybe emotionally too. That could be dance, that could be martial arts. Pretty much any movement or modality is going to be a blend of the elements, but you could choose to bias one or the other. So I categorize it, and I sort of break this down in the book that I'm putting out, but weightlifting is a very earth dominant activity. Something like just cycling is very water with a little bit of air. Air is present in everything, obviously, we need to breathe. But in terms of the complexity element, it's relatively low skill, but there is a skill component. You've never ridden a bicycle, it's very high skill. So it depends on where the individual is at with regard to that skill. So you can sort of categorize, to very generally sum up, earth is intensity and grounding, stillness and power. Fire is heat and speed and power. Air is complexity, dynamic movement. And water is flowing rhythmic movement. So that's the framework.
That is oh man, I can't wait for your session. I'm so excited for this because I think in general, and it's very like aligned with the feral self-care ethos, because in general, I feel like we live so much here. Like it's like the way I see it is like we're on like in a hot air balloon just rising right up out of our bodies. And it's like, and when I notice that happening to myself, which is frequent, it's like I have to kind of go, okay, get back into my body. And it's hard to do that when there's like all this free floating anxiety or all this like, oh my God, I got to do the thing and I've got to survive and like, look what's happening in the world and like all this crazy shit. When it's really like sometimes just anchoring into the body a little bit, you can spend 10 times the amount of time trying to avoid the feeling than if you just anchored it in and just let it move through you. And it's something that I think really affects all of us, certainly in the Western world, like where it is kind of normalized to be in a very disembodied state that's in this like mental realm all the time. But like how much integration or transformation or anything are you going to get up there if you're not integrating with the body, right? And so I can't wait for your session. Oh, it's so exciting.
Thank you. And I love what you just said too, because I call it head in a jar syndrome. We do we live so much of our life in a cerebral state of intellectual engagement,
Yeah.
you know, speed consuming, very emotionally charged information constantly. And I believe, and I've experienced in myself, that if I don't like immediately physically process a sort of commensurate amount of whatever I did up here, I start to get really out of balance really fast. And
Yeah.
so I'm really interested in bringing people into actual experiences as fast as possible and giving, and that's what we'll be doing in the seminar as well, is like really accessible, like what we just did, right? You just literally, all
Yeah.
you did was squeeze your fists,
Yeah.
required no equipment, no skill, no nothing, right? So you can learn infinitely complex levels of skill, and that's really fun. But if you can have tools, have strategies, have actions and tactics that you can immediately access to help pull yourself into a state of physical awareness, and then perhaps you can contextualize that through the elements and the way that you relate to them, then I think you have a little bit more to work with, and that's a good thing.
It's an amazing thing. And honestly, like if anybody is watching this now or on replay, don't just watch the squeezing the fist things. Literally try it for yourself. I'm serious. Try it for yourself because you will feel an immediate difference. And like one thing that in the Feral Self-Care Collective that we're trying to, like, the message we're trying to get out is that I think people think to feel better they need to have like a 48-step morning routine, or they need to like overhaul their entire lives. And actually it's actually, the mind fuck is in the fact that it can be so quick and it can be so easy and it can be fit into your life. Like these
Yes.
micro mini things, like even just this program, the fact that we meet for like 60 to 90 minutes a week and you can do it on your leisure on replay, but like that's not a whole life overhaul. And the way that it moves the needle is crazy. Like taking 6 deep intentional breaths, the way that can shift the way you feel, grounding for like literally 2 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever. And I think that we kind of all are like rushing around. It's like, well, I don't have time for that, and I can't do that, and I don't have the things. And it's like, you literally need nothing. You just need the radical self-responsibility to
Yeah.
fucking do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And the support and the witnessing of community and of teachers to just help you, like our brains tend to, like, they run on patterns. So
Yeah.
if you have never had these tools literally modeled and demonstrated and put directly into your hands, it can just be very difficult. It's like you don't know that you have these big blinders on until someone is just like, here, there it is.
Yeah.
And so that's what I definitely hope to achieve. And you're absolutely right. Like, major change can happen very quick. Like, yes, big change can be very long and systemic, and I've certainly changed a great deal over the course of the last 15 years. But you can make these shifts very, very quickly as well. And bringing that bar to entry as far down as we can. Like, just for example, on like a purely cold statistical level, the all-time mortality difference between someone who does no fitness a day and someone who has a slightly improved cardiovascular fitness is like, it's over 350% statistical difference in mortality risk.
I can't
We're
even.
talking about like taking a brisk walk down the street. Like, I'm not talking about doing a whole CrossFit workout. Well, that's great
Yeah.
too. So the amount that you can change for yourself it's radical. But sometimes you just need the support, the guidance, and just someone to help you roll up the blinds.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, thank you so, so much for telling us all about that. If you guys are here watching this, go and follow her. This is also amazing. I'm so amazed with your work, and I'm so grateful that you're going to be coming. And if you want to get 12 weeks of actionable tools, practices, and experiences from myself and 6 guest speakers like Cara right here, make sure you join the Feral Self-Care Collective. I would have links in my bio or links below if you are watching this on YouTube. You guys, we start on July 7th, and this is like not to toot my own horn again, toot toot, but like this is like the only program like this that I've ever seen. It is so financially accessible. It will hold you every single week. If you don't want to come to the lives, you just have a replay bank for when you're up at 2 a.m. going, what the fuck am I supposed to be doing? Like, I don't want to doom scroll. You can do that. It's crazy. It's amazing. Of course, I'm its mother, but I highly recommend that you join. And there's like less than 2 weeks left to join. So grab your spot today. We have 6 guest speakers and myself. So 12, you basically get 12 classes, 12 practices, 12 tools, 12 guided sessions. And I have a ton of testimonials from people who have taken season 1 and season 2 that are like, it's just crazy and mind-boggling how just a little bit of focus on yourself and your growth and your connection to yourself can move the needle in all areas of life.
Here, here.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Cara, sorry. Thank you so much. I can't wait for your session.
Likewise, I'm so excited to experience everything.
Bye.